in pursuit of its own government's policy. And that's how you ended up with Syrian rule in Lebanon for so long. You know, along the way you had Iraqis and Sudanese and goodness only knows whom else. And they were all fighting each other's wars inside Lebanon. That's the last thing I want for the Syrians. And that's why I think, you know, somebody other than the Arab League may be better positioned.
In terms of, I would like to say a couple of things. In terms of Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, obviously, in the case of Syria, in a civil war in Syria, in a sectarian war in Syria, this will not be left only to Syrians to fight that war. And I'm not saying this from a Turkish perspective, I'm saying from a regional perspective. Right now, you can hear reports that the governor of Anbar province in Iraq was saying that close to 50 buses or 100 buses of the Beni Sadr militia, or no, not Beni Sadr militia, went to Syria to fight alongside with the Syrian regime against the people who were making demonstrations. And I mean, we don't know what the Hezbollah will do, God forbid, if something of that scenario happens. Because, you see, for most of the people who live in the United States, it might seem a utopic thing going from here to Mexico or Canada to fight in their civil wars. But for that region, that is a very normal thing from somebody from Lebanon going because of the almost decades-long alliances and the reason of existence basically relied on or based on the other support. So the one in Syria will not, I mean, in Syria there are enough groups and sects and fears and sources for instability or smaller groups with, as Helena said, the Christians. I mean, how could they would trust Alawite-hating, former regime-hating Sunni government, and what would be the guarantees for them? Mm-hmm. And this is a very humane thing. I mean, not only for Christians or Alawites, whoever in their place, they will feel the same way. And all of these fears and worries should be satisfied. But not only that, not only domestic, there will be some outside forces, because for Iran, this is not a small thing in the region. This is not like, I mean, from your body you can probably tolerate losing a finger or something, but you cannot tolerate losing a huge part of your body. And especially because of the Syria, this is after the US withdrawal. If you can imagine that region and an Iranian ally government in Syria, how helpful that could be.
Mind you, they did win Iraq.
And I don't know to whom to thank for it.
So, just one last question.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hintz. I'm a PhD student at George Washington University. Mr. Cebeci, you described the shift in the Turkish government's relationship towards Syria from one of trying to be the negotiator and sort of the mediator and try and find a peaceful resolution to this, to one of sort of calling for Assad to step down. But you didn't, and perhaps wisely, give your opinion as to why that shift happened when it did. And I think it's around August 4th when Erdogan first sort of very vociferously speaks out against it. And I was wondering, I've heard a lot of the different arguments, whether it's, you know, UN Resolution 1973 kind of making the international community's position on this a fait accompli, Turkey has to get on board. Is it the increased attacks over the summer by the PKK saying we need to resolve our domestic issues, we can't expend this political capital abroad? I've heard some say it was the beginning of Ramadan, and so, you know, people were seeing their Sunni brothers being killed by an Alawite regime. So I was wondering if you could give your position on why this shift happened when it did.
Obviously, in foreign policies, you don't make easy decisions, especially a shift of this kind is not an easy decision to take. But if I have to answer that with a very simple answer, I will tell you that it is the erosion of patience and humanitarian reasons, and I have to be very specific what I'm saying because I'm going for the little bit, the sunset. You see, Turkey, if you look at the last 10 years, an amount of bilateral relations in the region has not invested more political capital to a country that is more than Syria. So you invest that much political capital, and you are led that this process, even before the Arab Spring, that Bashar Assad was the right person when the whole world, almost the entire world, your Western allies, European Union, United States, are pressuring you, what are you doing? You are, we are trying to isolate this regime, and you are trying to bring that regime back to do a civilized world. And actually, an analyst made this interpretation that when people are fallen in the old times into valleys, this is water valleys, you send them a rope to pull them up. And Turkey actually has done that, sending the rope. But at the end, the end did not turn to be good. Bashar Assad, instead of holding that rope and coming out, put that rope to his neck. The thing is, for so long, you are hopeful that this will be the change, and you invested so much on a country, and you know that they have enough confidence, enough political base to change, to initiate the process. And when at the end you understand that you were led and they were just playing for the time and they were making for time, you are left with no other choice. And I'm not saying that this is just a decision by itself. There was no other factors into this, but I can bet a lot of money that this process how it worked psychologically on the minds of people. But there are other things, obviously. But Kurdish issue at that time, the shift time was not that much of a big deal, and I don't think the Turkish government's policy shift has anything to do with the sectarian, because they didn't learn that Syria was ruled by the Syrians on August of 2008.
Just, gentlemen, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah.
This is the really last one.
Sorry, my name is Sasha Simonov. I'm with the Project on Middle East Democracy. I had a quick question. I was actually in Syria during the beginning of the revolution, so I speak with a lot of the internal opposition. And one of the things that they tell me every day is the longer the international community waits, the more likely there will be a civil war. That inaction from the international community actually raises those stakes. And they see it every day with the way in which the regime is pushing a sectarian narrative, through the way in which they put security bases and checkpoints in Alawite neighborhoods and Homs, to the demographic engineering they're doing in Latakia and Tartus provinces with the expulsion of Sunnis. All of these things conflate the regime's stance really as sort of a mafia-esque regime with the sectarian narrative. So my question is if the international community fails to do something and do something soon, are we not as complicit as the regime for not doing anything? So I was hoping you could respond to that.
This is a difficult, I will go first, but this is a difficult question, and it is a moral thing that we are asking. And I would agree with, you see, there is no clear choice of policies over here in terms of, there's not that many good options. Now, an outside intervention after Iraq, Libya, and Syria, third one. And Libya is not, we don't know what Libya will end up at the end of this process. I mean, so far what we know that it happened, and it is probably relatively at a lower cost than without an outside intervention. But still, the report cards are not banking yet from that process. So, an outside intervention in Syria, and military intervention is almost impossible because of all the regional dynamics, and short of that, I've heard the Mediterranean corridor.